Okay, so first of all, let's look at the today's outcomes of the lecture. Today we will be studying mainly pointers, and we will be doing the a quick recap of the topic we studied in our previous lecture, and that was structures. We felt the need that if we want to store a data of an employee of a company, student of a university, patient of a hospital, client of a bank, or anything, if you want to store complete record of that individual that contains alphanumeric entities, which includes the name of the employee, ID of that employee, salary of that employee, date of birth of that employee, so on and so forth. As per the requirement, we can create data, and we want to relate that data to that particular individual. And if we want to store that data in a container, that it belongs to that particular employee or a student or a client, then we must think out of arrays, because array is such a container which is homogeneous in nature, which can only store integers, which can only store characters, which can only store floats, booleans, only a singular type of data. It cannot store a mixed data, for example, record of a student. So for saving such records, we move towards structures. So that was our today's outcome of today's lecture, and then we will first of all discuss the motivation behind studying the next topic, and that is pointers. Why is addressing that much important in the programming paradigm? Why we want to manipulate addresses in the memory, so on and so forth. So first of all, just a quick recap of structures. As I have just narrated, that structure is something that is very much heterogeneous in nature. It means different types of data can be stored in it. For example, we were discussing in our previous lecture, we have a spare parts shop, and we have created our own structure, and that is struct is the keyword, here is the name of the structure. From this curly brace, the structure starts, from the corresponding curly brace, the structure ends, along with a semicolon. It's part of the syntax, otherwise it will result in an error. So these are the inclusions, these are the variables, or these are the members of that structure. The variables inside a structure, we call them as members. So these members are, of course, we can see different types of data, characters, float, integer. So if we want to store a particular information regarding a part in a spare part shop, so we required all these entities. We can, of course, increase such variables, we can decrease them, because this overall, the complete entity is user defined. It's in our own control. We want to append more variables, we can append in it. We can reduce variables as per our liking and requirement. So we can see character, array of characters. So we are describing something about that part, that particular part, because the information we feed in over here is true for every part in that shop. So description of that part, number of that part, again an array of characters, part number, float, the price of that individual article, and then of course the quantity, let's suppose what is left in the warehouse. Now once we have created this structure, how to drive it? We have said that it's a generic entity, it is true for every part. Now what about a particular part? For example, I have couple of parts in my hand. How I will actually make the association of that particular part along with these variables. So for that, I have narrated the command last time as well. We are in the process of creating our own data type. Why? The reason being, we always write int space a, comma b. This is how we create variables of this particular data type. Likewise, we have the name of the structure as part underscore struct. So we create variables for this data type as part 1, part 2. So this is how I am going to drive this structure by creating the variables. Now I have to establish the link between this variable and this description of this particular variable. This variable along with what is the part number of this first variable, what is the price of this variable, how much quantity is left for this variable. Likewise, part 2, again I will associate this part 2 with all of these. So, for example, diversity of data types has been shown over here. So we have a structure over here. This is how I have created the variables. Part struct. Variables can be of any name. A, B, C, part 1, part 2 should be self-explanatory, the better. New part, comma out part. I want to create these two variables. Again, exactly the same syntax. Int space A, comma B. Data type, variables. Data type, space A, comma B, semicolon. Same procedure. Now I want to establish the link between, for example, old part and its quantity. So this is how I am going to establish it and update the data. Old part dot quantity equals to some number. So it will go to that respective location where we want to store the data for this whole part. So we then discussed, this is how we establish the link between part, the variable and its generic member. The variable and the generic member of the structure are linked with this dot sign. Then we discuss various structure types, how we are going to create them. For example, date structure, day, month, year. Semicolon is important. ID, age, gender, CGPA, student. Our own created structures as per our requirement. Whatever inclusions we want, we can. Then we focus upon this. We will come back to this again because we have a nested structure over here. Student record, name, ID, department, gender. Characters and integers. If you want to, so this information, do you think it is true for every student? क्या ये information हर student पे apply होती है? होती है? ये generic entities हैं. Structure में आप generic entities डालते हैं. क्या आपके रिकॉर्ड में आपका नाम, आईडी, डिपार्टमेंट और जेंडर नहीं आएगा? Of course आएगा. Generic entities, isn't it? तो स्ट्रक्चर में हम हमेशा जेनेरिक एंटिटीज इंक्लूड करते हैं, विच इज ट्रू फॉर अ ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल. अदरवाइज उसको स्ट्रक्चर बनाने का कोई फायदा नहीं. इसलिए द रीजन बीइंग वी इंट्रोड्यूस द जेनेरिक एंटिटीज बिकॉज इफ वी वांट टू ड्राइव द स्ट्रक्चर बाय क्रिएटिंग वेरिएबल स्टूडेंट रिकॉर्ड स्पेस, I want to store record after a couple of students. So as I have created the variables student 1 comma student 2 integer space A comma B, the same procedure. As I am done with this, this is the memory state. As I have created the variables, the complete structures are also constructed for this student and for that student as well. If I have more variables, 10 variables, 10 variable structure will be created for student 1. Likewise, 10 variable structure will be created for student 2. You say, no, I have to manipulate 50 students. So then I can say, I can create student, record, students, 50, an array of 50. We have a space in between. Array of 50 students. So for 50 students, 50 structures have been created after implementing this line. So structures are working very smartly, isn't it? You just include entities, generic entities in a structure. You create variables, you create array. This much entities or this much number of structures will be created. 50 structure of this sort will be created for every student. We just have to fill them up. तो नॉर्मली आप देखें प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ में भी इस तरह ही हो रहा है. आपने कोई रिकॉर्ड सेव करना है, कोई भी मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम है, इवन बुक मैनेजमेंट है, एरोप्लेन मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम है, आपने जिस तरह प्रोजेक्ट्स भी किए हैं, तो इट इज़ वेरी हेल्पफुल इन दैट एरिया टू यूटिलाइज स्ट्रक्चर्स. नाउ हाउ टू फिल देम अप? इट इज़ वेरी सिंपल. यूजिंग द डॉट ऑपरेटर ओवर क्रिएटेड वेरिएबल student1 dot the structure member equal to that. This is the typical example. Student1 dot id equals to that. We can use string manipulation functions as well. We are done with these functions, because if we want to copy the data from, we have a comma that is separating source and destination. So here is the source in double quotes. It goes to student1 dot name. You can also equate it to this. It will also work. But we have used this function string copy. Again, string copy student1 dot department. Whatever the department comes to this. It's not necessarily that you have to use strcpy. You can equate it as well. Means you can assign it equals to student1 dot gender, whatever the gender is selected by these cases, and your name will be displayed. Now we have to put the structure at the top. Before starting the name, we have to put the structure over here, and we have to include whatever variables we want, because as we have created a variable for this structure, student1, a complete structure comprising of these members have been created. If I have written student 50, so 50 structures, each one comprising of these members have been created. So next is again how to fill it: dot name, dot id, dot department, dot gender, and this is how it will be displayed. Then we also discussed if you want to copy the same contents, we have filled a structure with some contents. We have to copy. Our requirement is to copy each content into another structure, student 2. So we just equate it. Student 1, student 2 equals to student 1. So student 1 complete data goes to student 2. So the complete data is copied. We don't need to apply any string manipulation function or any looping. Just equate it, A equals to B. Its related members are also equated at their respective locations. जस्ट हमने चेंज किया था कि वही डाटा है, जस्ट हमने जेंडर चेंज किया तो वो अकॉर्डिंगली इट इज़ वर्किंग. Previously, while discussing before structures, we were discussing arrays, searching in arrays. We have discussed this in the previous class as well, that if we have an array, up till 99, the name of the array is, let's suppose, A. We want to send it to a function search. What things we have to pass? Before discussing that, first of all, what are the procedures of passing a variable? What are the methods? Pass by reference, pass by value. Pass by value में क्या होता है? Anyone? Anyone else? जी. हाँ में से कोई? पास पे वैल्यू में क्या होता है? सॉरी, ओरिजिनल की कॉपी चली जाती है. ठीक है, बिल्कुल ठीक है. पास बाय रेफरेंस में क्या होता है? अब कह सकते हैं, मगर उसमें हमने मेनली डिस्कस किया था एक और नाम बन जाते, वो होता है एड्रेस ही है एक्चुअली, मगर x/a. याद है आपको बात कि अगर ए में चेंजेस होंगी तो क्या वो बी में होंगी या नहीं? रेफरेंस क्रिएट हो जाता है, मीन वो एड्रेस ही जाता है. देन वी डिस्कस्ड एरेज. अब आपके पास ये एरे, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इंफॉर्मेशन. हॉस्टल का रिकॉर्ड है, आपने स्टूडेंट को सर्च करना है, हम सर्च फंक्शन को क्या क्या चीज पास करना चाहिए, व्हाट आर द इनपुट पैरामीटर्स वी वांट टू पास टू द सर्च फंक्शन इन ऑर्डर टू सर्च अ पर्टिकुलर इंडिविजुअल। एरे का नेम, इसके अलावा एनीथिंग एल्स, साइज ऑफ कोर्स, उसकी लिमिट्स, वो किसी वेरिएबल से भी ऑलरेडी डिफाइंड, एनीथिंग एल्स, देखिए आपने एरे के राइट्स पास कर दिए, उसको साइज भेज दिया, जिसको सर्च करना है उसको भी वो बता दें, स्टूडेंट की सर्च की। So these are the three inclusion or the input parameters we actually pass to the search function. Now over here it's a discussion whether you have passed the array by reference or by value. By value is something, again refreshing, x की कॉपी बनी ओरिजिनल की और इधर चली गई, ये 4 हो गया, डिस्प्ले हो गया 4, x2 ही है, बुक की कॉपी बनी आपने फ्रेंड को दे दी, फ्रेंड ने चेंजेस की, बुक वैसी ही है, पास द वैल्यू, पास बाय रेफरेंस, x एक जगह का नाम है जिसकी वैल्यू 2 है, एक और नाम दे दिया y, अगर मैं y if I'm making any change in y, what does this mean? I'm changing over here, it's the one location. So if I'm writing, where it will be reflected? Over here, same location, it becomes over here. So this is passed by reference. Now coming to array, whether over here, whether I have passed this array by this method or this method. मीन मैंने इसकी कॉपी बना के भेज दिया या कहा है कि इधर ही आके मैनिपुलेट कर लें, क्यों हमने कॉपी क्यों नहीं किया एरे की, हमारा डाटा भी इंपॉर्टेंट है, आइडियली तो एरे की कॉपी होनी चाहिए थी, इज़न्ट इट, ताकि चेंजेस ना हो, मगर C++ की रिस्ट्रिक्शन है, आपके पास एरेस तो कई होते हैं, मे बी 5 और एरे हों और 500 एलिमेंट्स ईच, उसकी कॉपी होती रहेगी। ऐसी कंडीशन में एरेज आर पास्ड बाय रेफरेंस बाय डिफॉल्ट, यू कैन नॉट पास एन एरे बाय वैल्यू, इन सिंपलर वर्ड्स एरे की कॉपी नहीं बनती, एरे जहां पर एक दफा क्रिएट हो गया, आप डिफाइनिंग फंक्शन को कहते हैं इधर ही आए, रीड कर लें या राइट कर लें, जो भी करना है एक ही जगह। तो ये बात तो वी हैव डिस्कस्ड, no more copy for this array, it is where it is situated, it will stay there, you come over here, perform reading or writing, both are included, but your data is crucial, of course, that we will discuss. What powerful thing you have passed in the name of array, that you say complete array has been passed, इसकी वैल्यू में क्या है, ए में ऐसी क्या चीज स्टोर्ड है कि हम कहते हैं पूरा एरे पास हो गया, किसका एड्रेस, फर्स्ट एड्रेस 0, बिल्कुल ठीक है, 0 मेमोरी में जहां पर 0 स्टोर्ड है, ए में उसका एड्रेस स्टोर हुआ है, इट इज जस्ट लाइक द रियल वर्ल्ड सिनेरियो, कोई इधर गेट पे आ जाए, एंटर हो जाए, इट मींस एवरीथिंग इज एक्सेसिबल, आप 0 पे आ जाए, +3 करें तो कहां होंगे, 3, 0 पर आ जाए, +99 करें कहां होंगे, because everything is at the distance of +1, so that's why we say अगर किसी के पास 0 का एड्रेस है, it means उसके पास पूरे एरे का राइट है। तो हमने कहा ए ने यहां सेंड किया, हमने ए को, रिसीविंग में हमने जब फंक्शन को डिफाइन किया, वी हैव डिफाइंड इट लाइक इंट b कॉमा इंट array size कॉमा वेरिएबल्स डिफाइन करें, इंट सर्च की, यहां हम इसको डिफाइन करें, तो ए को किसने रिसीव किया, बी, व्हाट डज दिस मीन, ए का एक और नाम बताएं, साइज को किसने रिसीव किया, और की को सर्च की। अब आपके पास ये तीनों चीजें ओवर हैं। अगर आप b को b of I करेंगे तो व्हाट डज दिस मीन? इफ I is 0, see out b of I, if I is 0 क्या डिस्प्ले होगा? 7, because b over here means a and a over here means if it is 0, 7. This is how we say complete array has been passed. Now over here I am again making a comment, any variable which saves an address. Over here, which is the variable which saves the address? Which has saved an address? A. Out of all these variables, which variable we say has saved some address as a value? A. So any variable which saves address as a value is called a pointer. This is the basic definition of pointer. Any variable, now coming towards a simple variable, let's suppose we have x with the value 5. Any variable which saves, let's suppose x is at 550,000 location. These addresses are normally in hexadecimal notation, in the base 16. If any variable has some value as address, x is situated at 50,000 location. If any variable has value 50,000, which means address of this variable, we say it's a pointer to an integer whose name is x, whose value is 5. तो ये होता है जी पॉइंटर। क्या बेसिक डेफिनेशन है जी पॉइंटर की? Any variable which saves an address as a value. We cannot store integers, doubles, floats, boolean in that variable. So over here we have seen that array name is also a pointer because it saves address as a value. Powerful tool. Now why powerful? पहले मोटिवेशन तो देख ले हम. Why we are discussing pointer जब कि हमारा काम ऐसे भी हो रहा है, isn't it? हम एड्रेसिंग की तरफ क्यों जाना चाह रहे हैं? In the memory cloud, you have created an array with the name A. You say A contains the address of 0. Plus 1 करें आप पूरा plus 1 करते हैं पूरा array access हो सकता है. If you burst this, they all are scattered. Let's suppose आपका data इस तरह scattered होगा, so on and so forth. If you are over here, by doing plus 1, क्या आप यहाँ पहुँच सकते हैं? It's a random access memory, completely random. How you will assess this location? Using a pointer, which saves address of 1. Then you will go there, and then for 2, another 3, 4. This is how you will complete the route. And this also creates another data structure which is called linked list. एक और डाटा स्ट्रक्चर अगर भी आप बर्स्ट कर दें और पॉइंटर के थ्रू असेस करें, इट्स अ लिंक्ड लिस्ट. ये एडवांस प्रोग्रामिंग में हम यूज करें. तो पॉइंटर में अप टू दिस पॉइंट वी नीड टू नो हाउ द एड्रेसिंग्स आर मैनेज्ड, हाउ वी एक्चुअली मैनेज द एड्रेसेस. देन इट सेज सिमुलेट पास बाय रेफरेंस. दिस इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. By the end of this lecture, we will definitely understand this point. ये बिल्कुल पास बाय रेफरेंस की तरह काम करता है. पास बाय रेफरेंस में हमने x का एक और नेम बना देते हैं a. ये बिल्कुल उसी तरह किस तरह काम करेगा? इधर हम एड्रेस भेजेंगे और उधर से पॉइंटर उसको रिसीव करेंगे. And then we will see manipulation किस तरह होती है. Because in advanced programming there are no more names in the memory. There are only pointers, which saves address of a location which contains a value. अब इसकी एग्जांपल देखें, ये जो मैं कहना चाह रहा हूं. X has the value 10. See out. X क्या वैल्यू आएगी? 10 एक pointer है, let's suppose xptr which says address of this, we call it a pointer. We have yet to see pointer कैसे create करना है, इसका address कैसे, मगर आपको समझाने जा रहा हूँ here. See out steric xptr. If I'm writing it like this, it will also give me value. This is called direct reference, assessing the value directly, and this is called indirect reference, assessing the value indirectly using a pointer. Direct reference, indirect reference. with the indirect references के दो तीन नाम हैं. Indirect reference, dereferencing, indirection. कोई भी नाम आए, it means the same. Direct reference, indirect reference. Indirect reference has further two names. Dereferencing, indirection. Means one and the same. What does this mean? Assessing a particular value using a pointer. तो अगर आप पॉइंटर के थ्रू वैल्यू असेस कर रहे हैं, तो अब आप देखें इनडायरेक्टली आप वैल्यू असेस कर ली. That's why I'm saying कि आस्ता आस्ता we are moving towards that approach in which memory will be having saving pointers of every location with some values. We can not only read it, we can write it as well. अभी तो आपने किया C out 10. What if you want to change the value using a pointer? One thing, it will change the value, isn't it? We don't want to use it. We want to use the pointer. I will just write static xptr equals to, it will, this means go to that location whose address is saved. Static is the value operator over here. उसकी value को 10 से, so I have read over here and I have written over here. Both operations I have performed using a pointer, and the process is called dereferencing or indirection. So indirectly आप इस value को assess कर सकते हैं with these techniques. अब हम चलते हैं जरा इसकी डिटेल डिस्कशन और थोड़ा थ्योरी की तरफ कि पॉइंटर एक्चुअली क्या है. अब हमें ये चीज समझ आ गई. नाउ इट विल बी वेरी इजी टू कॉम्प्रीहेंड. It provides a way of assessing a variable without referencing its name. ये बात आपको समझ आ गई? Without using coutx, I have assessed the variable. Not only assessed, I have changed it. The mechanism used for this is the address of that variable. Address. अगर मेरे पास x का एड्रेस है, ये भी हमने सेकंड पॉइंट डिस्कस करना है अब कि x का एड्रेस मेरे पास कैसे आएगा. इट्स वेरी सिंपल. int x equals to 10, the previous state. int xptr एक पॉइंटर बनाए. तो ये एक वेरिएबल है, ये एक पॉइंटर है. क्या ये बात ठीक है? Pointer is distinguished, differentiated with a static operator. This is how we create a pointer. Now static has three usages in C++ programming. If you go in the real world, if you go to an ATM, you press a button for entering the PIN. You press the same button for money withdrawal. You press the same button at times to check the balance. Am I right?
Yes.
Same button has been programmed more than once. This process in programming is called overloading. Same is true for any watch. Same is true for your cell phones, isn't it? एक बटन एक दफा में क्या परफॉर्म करता है, सेकंड टाइम में the same button is for functionality differentiates. This process is called overloading. Operator overloading, function overloading. In programming we have couple of overloadings. Function overloading means we have a search function. I have tasked a student, एक student को आपने search करना है with registration number. I have tasked another student कि आपने उसी student को search करना है with name. दोनों क्या कर रहे हैं? एक ही स्टूडेंट को सर्च करना, बट द इनपुट पैरामीटर्स आर डिफरेंट. Such functions are called overloaded functions. Input parameters. वो advanced इसमें let's say आ जाती चीज. Overloaded operator क्या है? Static has been overloaded thrice in C++. One, A cross B. Multiply करते हैं. Second, to create a pointer. Third, indirection. So there are three usages of static. It is mentioned in your book as well. One is in a binary context to multiply the operands with the operator A cross B. Second, to create a pointer. Third, to utilize or read or write using a pointer. The process is called indirection. तो हमने एक वेरिएबल क्रिएट किया, एक पॉइंटर क्रिएट किया. कैन आई से इट्स अ पॉइंटर टू एक्स? क्यों जी? ये मैंने एक पॉइंटर क्रिएट कर दिया, क्या मैं कह सकता हूँ xptr इज अ पॉइंटर टू x? व्हाई? अभी हमने उसको एड्रेस दिए ही नहीं. इट्स अ नल पॉइंटर एट द मोमेंट. नाउ आई विल राइट xptr इक्वल्स टू एम्परसेंड एड्रेस ऑफ x. किसको दे रहे हैं? Now it's fine. So we have created a variable, we have declared a pointer, we have initialized a pointer with the address of this variable. Now this relationship holds true. We display x 10. We display static xptr 10. We updated it with 20. Done. Now keeping this thing in mind, let us correlate it with the knowledge at the slides. तो अब आप पढ़ते जाएं, it will be very easy for you to comprehend. The textbook data contains memory address as value. Memory address pointer contains memory address as value. Normally variable contains values. X की value 10 है, ये normal variable. C out x direct reference. Count है value 7 है. C out count direct reference. Pointer contains address of that variable which has some specific value. Pointer contains address of that variable which has some value. Indirect reference. Count ptr again same xptr. इसका पॉइंटर बना और पॉइंटर के थ्रू हमने जब उसको रीड और राइट किया उसको क्या कहते हैं? तो इस एग्जांपल के बगैर अगर आप यहाँ डायरेक्ट पढ़ेंगे तो कुछ समझ नहीं आता कि व्हाट इज द इंडायरेक्शन. Referencing a value through pointer means direct reference, indirect reference. This is how I can create a pointer. Same process. I can create as many pointers of my choice of data type int using a comma separated list. जितने मर्जी pointer बना लें. Static A, comma static B. Name should be self-explanatory. Semicolon. If I have created a pointer, declared it over here, up till this point, I have not done this step, it means it's a null pointer. So after this, it's a pointer to x. But in book and normally, formally, we pronounce it as xptr is a pointer to an integer. In further details, we say the integer is x with the value 10. It's a pointer to an integer because it's an integer pointer. अब एड्रेसेस क्या हैं? देखिए एड्रेस ही एक्चुअल चीज है. आपको नाम पता है, CME एड्रेस नहीं पता. एड्रेस इज एक्चुअल थिंग. तो इसलिए कहा जा रहा है कि जो एक्स है इट विल लूज इट्स चार्म. इट्स एक्चुअली द xptr which contains address of that location where 20 is stored. So each byte of each variable occupies some bytes in memory according to size. Each byte of memory has a unique address, so it can be accessed just like addresses of our homes. Variable names are actually titles. This is just a title. Actually, is the address. When you use a variable, the compiler fetches the value placed in that address, or writes a new value which is assigned to that address. अब एड्रेस कैसे पता लगेगा वेरिएबल को? ये देगा एड्रेस, एक्स का एड्रेस एम्परसेंड. सी आउट ए सी आउट एम्परसेंड ए एड्रेस आ जाएगा इन हेक्साडेसिमल नोटेशन। ये एक्चुअल मेमोरी का एड्रेस है जहां पर एक्स स्टोर हुआ है। एक और एग्जांपल देख लें, इंटीजर y इक्वल टू 5 स्टैटिक yptr पॉइंटर बन गया। अप टिल दिस पॉइंट कैन आई से yptr इज अ पॉइंटर टू y? नो, टिल द टाइम आई हैव डन दिस yptr इक्वल्स टू एड्रेस ऑफ y, नाउ yptr इज अ पॉइंटर टू y। जस्ट फॉर आवर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, नॉट इन हेक्स notation, 600,000 location पर y is stored with the value 5. If any variable has 600,000 as a value, we can say this variable is a pointer to y. However, where pointer is stored, it also has some address. Pointer भी तो मेमोरी में स्टोर हुआ है। What if ये भी कुछ स्टोर कर ले? पॉइंटर टू पॉइंटर, वो एडवांस प्रोग्राम है, डबल स्टैक, ठीक है, ठीक है। वो एडवांस प्रोग्राम है, डाटा स्ट्रक्चर में यूज करते हैं पॉइंटर टू पॉइंटर, पॉइंटर का भी पॉइंटर फर्दर नहीं, बस पॉइंटर टू पॉइंटर। स्टैटिक yptr, अच्छा एकदम यहां पर उसने अपडेट कर दी वैल्यू, क्या आपको समझ आ रही है कैसे की? ये जो बोर्ड पे लिखा है इसको नहीं बोलना, जस्ट को रिलेटेड, यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड इट, इजंट इट? कैसे अपडेट किया, क्या प्रोसेस है ये? डीरेफरेंस, इंडायरेक्शन, इनडायरेक्ट रेफरेंस, असेसिंग समथिंग इनडायरेक्टली यूजिंग अ पॉइंटर। आखिर में ये कमेंट है, स्टैटिक एंड इनवर्स आर एम्परसेंड और इनवर्स ऑफ ईच अदर। अब ये जो एक स्टेटमेंट है इसको भी प्रूव करना पड़ेगा, तो आफ्टर द ब्रेक हम ये सब कंबाइन करते हैं एक प्रोग्राम में, ठीक है।